It's 6:05, and we're going to start our third night of our budget meeting. And hello to the YouTube folks at home. And we'll have a call to order. And let's do a roll call. And Steve, we'll start with you again.
Steve Sims.
Leonard Hayes.
Luke Cranston.
Jonathan Penrice.
Kenny Carey.
Denise Bush.
Brian Quigley.
Damian Santoni.
David Patty.
Brent Walker.
And thank you, staff and department heads all being here. Do we have any announcements from any of you folks?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do believe committee member Ort will be late.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to approving our minutes from the last meeting, Tuesday night, the 13th. And may I ask for a motion from amongst us to approve the budget meeting minutes from Tuesday?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. And do we have any discussion? Any questions about the minutes? Okay, I'll move on to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And the minutes are approved from Tuesday night. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Julia and James and Alyssa, since I think we had taken a bunch of questions, and for the expediency of time, we just gave out questions, and now tonight we're going to pick up with all those answers. So I'll pass it to you.
Yes, so we sent out a budget meeting follow-up memo number 1. For some of you, it was last night. For some of you, it was this afternoon, because I thought that the council was on the email distribution list. So the budget committee members that are not on council got it last night, and councilors got it about 4:30 this afternoon, when I realized that that's what happened. And then we also sent out a budget meeting follow-up memo number 2, which just had one question on it. We sent that out about 4:30 this afternoon, and that's in front of you as well. We can go through the questions. I guess I don't, how do you guys want me to do this? I don't know that I want to read it verbatim, but the question was, what would it look like to increase the salaries for the city engineer position and public works director position to be more competitive and get more applicants? And Alyssa provided some information about the McGrath human resources study, how we do that. Our recommendation is that if we wanted to look at that we advertise at a higher step range rather than having a one-off salary range. Because if we change that, we really need to be looking at all the salaries to make sure that everybody is in the right category. So I don't know if you want us to elaborate on that, or.
I'll pass Julia's question on to us members. Any of you guys have any questions about this item number 1?
No.
Okay.
Wait.
Go ahead, Luke.
Would a hiring bonus be an option to make that happen, or is that something we're not tasteful for?
Whether or not a hiring bonus would be something, I think that's something that we could explore. I know that's been done. Alyssa has something to say.
I was going to add, sometimes rather than a hiring bonus, like helping relocate if they're coming from out of state, we've definitely done that for positions, and that would be something we can definitely offer also.
And another thing that's mentioned in here is potentially, and it comes with a cost, but potentially hiring a recruiting firm that could help us with that as well. But like I said, that's not inexpensive, but that's something that we could look at as well.
the help with the moving would probably be a big one, because I think we could bring somebody in from another state or something like that. That's a great idea.
Brian?
So we don't have policy on that right now in the city? Relocation?
Not typically. I mean, if we do, like, for instance, with the city manager, when we've used a recruiting firm, that's part of the negotiations. And but I would say, I'm just trying off the top of my head if we've had any department heads relocate a long distance. We did have a position. He ended up passing on the position, but there was someone for a managerial position at one point where we did offer that in as part of our negotiations.
Yeah, thanks, Alyssa. I was just
Yeah.
wondering if there was policy.
Yeah.
So the next question was more kind of a statement / question. The budget appears to be increased by 28% from last year. This is significant. What contributed to the increase? And it's really, there's a lot of changes. I'm just going to read what's in the memo. There's more income from SDCs and grants, which means we have budgeted more projects. Grants are up 2,246%. SDCs budgets are up 89%. The capital outlay spending is up 115%. Salaries and benefits also increased in accordance with contracts, our policies and procedures, and insurance costs. The next question, oh, go ahead.
Questions about item number 2? Having none, go ahead, Julia. Thank you.
The next question was about the Community Prosperity Initiative funds for Marion County for economic development, and whether or not that could potentially be used towards the streetlight project instead of the neighborhood improvement grant. We did check with the county, and it sounds like they could be used towards that project. Did we receive anything in writing?
We didn't get a follow-up.
Okay. We had hoped to get something in writing today, but we didn't. But that would only contribute $20,000 because it's $20,000 per year. And while there's 2 years in the budget, the project is going to just would be done, done. So, and the project cost is $65,000. And then I refer you to later in this memo where we discuss some potential additional cuts.
No questions? Go ahead. Let's move on to 4.
Okay. This was a question about, so it says by using the 20,000 this isn't worded right. Basically, the money that we used, we moved the neighborhood improvement grant from council. That was $15,000. It's now $20,000, but it was being paid for with the Community Prosperity Initiative funds. The question was, where did those funds go? Why can't they be used towards the street project? And the short answer is that it's absorbed in other areas of the budget. The reality is the general fund increases for this biennium in COLA and steps alone is about $500,000, and medical and benefits is about $154,000. While much attention has rightly been given to asset management and addressing deferred maintenance, it's important to remember that your most valuable asset is your staff, and ensuring their well-being and retention is an essential part of sustaining effective operations and complying with our contracts. Questions?
Questions on 4? No.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to 5.
So probably the big one, what cuts would staff propose to fund the $65,000 streetlight conversion project without reducing the 15% franchise fee contribution to streets and not including those that we had offered up as additional cuts? So the first thing we looked at is not increasing the general fund subsidy to the library, parks, and pool. That would save about $35,000. So I asked the directors what they would cut from those areas. Jana said the library would cut the phone project. In parks, we would cut that from the park maintenance line item. We think that in talking with the Marion Soil and Water Conservation District, there might be some grants. They're really wanting to do projects in Stayton for park, cleanup, vegetation cleanup, so we think that that could be offset with some grants there, so we felt that we could reduce that by $17,000. The pool was really tight. Alyssa and Emily really dug into this one. As it says in the memo, all identified cuts are super risky, but I'm not going to go through it in detail, but we identified some areas where we think we could come up with that $12,000 cut to the pool. And so that left $30,000. And so I went to my general fund funded managers and asked them for additional cuts. And the list in front of you is what we offered up. And I'll just leave that there.
Okay, looks like we got a question from Steve. Go ahead.
So, Julia, this 65,000 isn't taking away the community improvement grant?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure. I just want to make sure.
That was, we didn't know that was going to be a yes, and so we identified the $65,000 regardless of the community improvement
So
grant.
you're willing to not get a pay raise?
Not get as big a pay raise, yes, I am willing to do that.
Luke, go ahead.
I'd like to say thank you for that offer.
Okay, that takes care of 5. Thank you, Julia.
So the next question was, did staff consider anything else in the additional 15% cut other than what was presented, and if so, what? And then, so I'm just sort of reading because the shorter ones are easier to just read. As mentioned at the meeting, we scrutinized all general fund budgets quite thoroughly. While we could continue to shave bits off of things like materials and services, keep in mind we already did that to get to the 15% cut. The only cuts that would provide the additional $287,000 and not impact operations was what was offered.
Looking at the footnote here, what does the selling off of old guns look like for the police department?
So that's actually going back to the $65,000 cut package. And Chief, do you want to come up and talk about what that looks like?
Excuse me. Yeah, so when Julie asked what, maybe some areas we could cut, so we are going to be making some transitions with our Glocks, and in that process, under previous administration, we had some, they had reserves, and so there were additional guns that were in our supply to provide to the reserves, and we don't any longer need those. And so that will kind of supplement some of the costs that we would have. And then just some of the careful planning. Our range master does a wonderful job of kind of pre-planning and making sure our supplies and what we need to operate our range and provide the firearms training is well planned ahead.
Thank you.
Chief, don't go away.
Go ahead, Mr. Patty.
Thank you. Hey, Chief, I just was curious about the equipment and PD license plate readers. What are those going to be used for? What are the contract services and PD cut that's identified in this package?
So a lot is changing in law enforcement, and it's becoming very technology-based. So there's some new, technology that allows us or assists us in our jobs, such as drones. Some of the other things like the NARC Ranger that we were able to receive this year through a grant. So we began looking at what options were to get license plate readers in our community that would follow suit with other Marion County communities. We had hoped maybe to get a grant, and that would have been a match, the number that you see there, the $6,000 odd dollars. That grant didn't come to fruition, and so for us, that made sense. That would be a potential cut. It's something in the future we would like to look to. Basically, it's something that is on a post. It scans and reads all license plates that pass through. It will tell us if there's a stolen plate, but it also does additional. So let's say we have a significant assault case or a weapons case, and we're looking for a white pickup truck with a dent in the tailgate. It would track that as well and give us feedback based on those descriptions put into the system. And then it also would allow us, if other businesses are interested, let's say Arco, right? A lot of traffic comes off 22, travels through there. If they wanted to add their camera system to the LPR, instead of us having to go to Arco, hope that the manager that knows how to run it is available, and maybe a couple days later we get the footage. If they chose to be partners, they could just have it on that system and give us access. So there's a lot of opportunities. This was our baseline, what would be a minimum thing that we could do, and hope that we get a grant. There's other grant opportunities, but that was where we were starting.
And then the contract services and PD, what is that?
We're pretty contract heavy, whether it's through our records management system, and just a whole lot of things, whether it's dispatch services, CAD, and so that was an area where I just skimmed down a service that we may no longer need.
What was the service?
Well, I guess that I don't know how much they're going to increase over the next few years, right? So I'd kind of built a little buffer. I think that I would be able to shave that back and be okay.
Okay, I was trying to understand that cut. And then I just had one other clarifying question following that. Should we receive confirmation that the 20,000 could be used, would we be able to eliminate the license plate reader cut and Julia's potential merit increase cut and then still be okay with this package? Julia?
I believe in the community improvement grant, the neighborhood improvement grant. I mean, it's up to you. I appreciate that.
No, that says it all right there. Thank you.
Luke, we're still on 6. Question about that?
Yes, I had a question about the license plate reader. It's not something you have on a car where you're driving down and it's reading all the license plates you drive past, correct?
Those are a type that can be put on our cars, but that means a car has to be in the right place at the right time. So the ones that we were looking at are fixed. And we would strategically place, right, high volume traffic coming in and out of town.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was really question 5, but any more questions on question 5 or 6 before we move on to question 7?
Okay.
Luke, is your placard still up from, okay. Question 7 was that you'd like to see the budget costs with the council goals. What's the largest expenditure? And in your packet is attachment 1, that is essentially the goal matrix. I think, yeah, so I think I took out some lines that weren't necessary, so it's still somewhat readable. So I identified what the budget amount is, and like I said in the memo, it's really hard to quantify because there's staff work associated with all of these things, but I tried to identify the hard costs and bolded those in there. And really, I guess the highest cost project is the money towards the ASR, but that comes out of the water fund. So I also tried to identify the budget funds associated with those goals.
Questions for 7? Nope. Having none, let's move on to 8.
So I actually think I want to skip that for now
Okay.
because it's a 4-page answer. And so, and I think we know Barry well enough by now to know that it might be we'll just kind of get through that, and then we'll have him round us out. Over the last, so the number 9, over the last 2 years, how much money has been earmarked for streets that have not been used due to management constraints? Street overlays has 1.25 million budgeted over the last 2 years, and we will spend around 830,000. So that leaves about 420 unspent. Reconstruction has 150,000 budgeted with nothing spent. It is possible that having the vacant public works director may have contributed to not spending all of that, but we don't think all of it was, just because we were also assessing the street conditions, coming up with a funding strategy, which created an atmosphere of wanting to kind of better identify the roads before we moved forward on some projects, and that caused some delays.
Luke, go ahead on the streets.
When I asked that question, when I meant management, I didn't necessarily mean Public Works Director. I also meant with the asset management role that was proposed.
Okay, so we'll cover that in 8, apparently.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
10, and some of these questions sort of like I formed into questions just based on some conversations I had with some folks, but what would it save if we did not make the code enforcement officer position full-time, and what would the impact be? The cost savings is about $71,000 per year, but that's largely because the health benefits and retirement contributions. And we just want to really note that this employee is working, it's really 0.25 FTE that's keeping them from benefits, and every other part-time employee in the city does not exceed 0.63. And we just feel like there's some inequity considerations that come into play there. And so, I think James kind of was just talking about it just doesn't feel very fair. So we just wanted to point that out. Additionally, and we tried to highlight this, but it's complicated. The proposed change is not solely a matter of increasing hours, but it's tied to the functional shift in responsibilities with the workload for building permits moving to community and economic development and having that full-time position. That's going to free up more work for the public works office specialist to support more public works projects that we've been talking. There's a lot of things going on in public works, and perhaps Barry, when he comes up, can talk more about that and that need as well. Or if you guys have questions, we can talk about it now.
Jordan, go ahead.
Does the code enforcement, are they going to be working on public works stuff as well then?
No.
Okay.
They would only be doing code enforcement and processing building permits. So they would be full-time. There's currently an office specialist position that will remain full-time in public works, and that position will have more time to do public works stuff that isn't building permit processing.
Okay, so code enforcement is going to take on building permits
Yes.
that she's not currently doing.
Correct. So she will be full-time. Right now, she's not full-time. So
Okay.
that additional time, we anticipate will allow that, and again, allow that position, the code enforcement officer position, to be there full-time. So it also gives a little bit more ability for the public who get letters or have questions, that there'll be a body there for code enforcement.
But is that the role of a code enforcement to do building permits? Is that
It is if we say
under-
that's what the position is. There's a lot of
but is
positions that
under their
are building
purview?
So
not an
a lot of
inspector role?
building inspectors do code enforcement. That's a pretty common thing. She has actually been taking building inspection classes, so
Okay.
she's got knowledge and experience in that. And so we think there's the capacity, and it also makes some logical sense, and it's not abnormal at all to have a code enforcement officer in a building department. That's a pretty typical scenario for many. I mean, a lot of times they're in building or PD. I mean, that's sort of a typical place where code enforcement is, or planning.
Okay, thank you.
I have people that were, did you guys have anything to add? Okay. Yes.
Mine isn't really a question, it's more of an opinion that I'll keep to myself, but distribute it. Since this is my third year, last year we talked about this position, and my feeling was, since we came out of COVID, I don't remember exactly year by year, but we used to have 1 or 2 people, just for the knowledge of us here and the folks at home. We used to have 1 or 2 people, and I was a little disappointed that when we came out of COVID, we had 0 people. So I was on the bandwagon this time last year for, yes, let's make that spot. It's not new, it's been around, let's make it full-time. So personally, I want it to go to full-time. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
You didn't keep that to yourself very well. Question number 11 was, what would the general fund impact be if we reduced the contribution to facilities fund to $50,000 instead of $100,000? Because of the way the different departments fund it, it would save the general fund $82,000 if we went from the $200,000 per year per biennium to $100,000 per biennium. That's a pretty straightforward answer. So, question 12 was, there was a suggestion about possibly reducing the audio visual update in half, and so I asked Alyssa to provide a little bit more detail on the quote that we received, and so this is a pretty detailed description of what was looked into and what the project would be. I'm not going to read it in detail. You guys can look at that. But I guess I want to highlight that we will do RFPs. We will look at that. And we can do some value engineering potentially as we go through that project. But we want to make sure that we have the funds to do what will be a really good product. Alyssa, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I don't think I have much more to add. I'm sure that you have read this. It's more than just microphones and speakers and those sorts of things. It's a timer for the council meetings that the mayor or whoever's using the system for a meeting you can control the vote. You can do a timer for public comment, and the cameras, they move when someone's talking, so it's not like we're controlling the cameras. It's like automatic voice activated, and so it'll be better for the viewer who maybe is watching virtually. And it's a lot more than just a basic, like what we're sitting here with now.
Steve, go ahead.
Alyssa, thanks for answering that. That was my question.
You're welcome.
Because I was in a little bit of a fluster of about $150K,
and hopefully it's not that much. Like I said,
so it goes out for RFP, you said, and
yeah, we'll go out
get
for
bid
RFP.
on, because I think you went to one of the higher.
I went to what
Contractors
most
for it.
cities are using.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right now, they've just recently finished with Monmouth and Jefferson. They just signed a contract with Roseburg.
Wow, they
to do
did Jefferson?
Similar, yeah.
Holy smokes.
And the new they've done.
I guess the thing, so yeah, that's the thing, is that
That's
Alyssa
right,
was
yeah.
like, it's a little bit apples and oranges. It depends on, they might have a much smaller space. They might have different it's very different. So, we'll certainly have other people look at it, but I don't think Jefferson probably paid that much, but they may not have had the age of the building and the type of the things that we needed. So
Yeah, and in some cases, like Monmouth, it was a new build because they were building their new city hall.
Oh, okay.
And so they came in as part of the, project, and I think they said theirs was 80,000, just off the top of my head. I can't remember what Jefferson's was. for the, like I mentioned in here, there in Salem, there's Hear No Evil, and they bid on one of the projects. And I think it was, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but they bid on one of these projects where they were just doing microphone, like I think they were just doing like microphones and a sound system, and Key Code was like 19,000, and Hear No Evil came in higher. So it's just and that's why, as I started asking other cities, well, what did you pay? What was your contract? It's like, well, I can't really compare it because I don't know what they did unless I sat in line item, so.
Another thing to note, and we didn't note it in here, I don't think, so the quote was done with no idea what was happening with tariffs, but with the anticipation of tariffs, and so there's a pretty steep tariff contingency that may not be realized. So, this budget amount gives us the ability, but it might not be that much depending on where things come from.
Is this something we really need? I think so too.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, all right. I got you. I'll back off.
So I'll have Barry come up to address the last two questions, which is question number 8 and question number 1 from the supplemental memo today. I will read them out loud. So one was just a simple, easy question. Can I get the total amount of deferred maintenance and failing assets for each of the water, wastewater, stormwater facilities, parks, and street funds? It would also be helpful if you could provide some examples of failing assets and assets predicted to be in failing condition within the next 5 years for each of the funds, as well as the associated costs to get back in good order. Also, if I could get a total amount of assets in poor condition for each of the funds, that would be appreciated. So that was question number 8. And just like a 2-minute answer, Barry. I'm just kidding. And then the second question was, first, do our staff create the master plans that are missing? Second, how close to being done are they? If we prioritize those being completed in this budget cycle, will the current capital outlay projects get completed, assuming the hiring process takes a year or more? And then while you're answering those two questions, if you could also just touch on the office specialist as well.
Let's do the office specialist first. So we have just hired the new office specialist, and she will start on Monday. The new office specialist will, in actual fact, cover administration work associated with the Public Works Department. Currently, the office specialist does do most of the permitting, supervision, and administration under the guidance and support of the engineering tech. So what we're trying to do, or what we're doing in this particular move, is taking it out of Public Works and putting it into economic development, which is where it normally would reside in most other cities. It frees up our engineering tech to some degree, and it also frees up our administration specialists to do things that currently aren't being done right now. And the example of that is that our document control system, our document management, and our filing system is chaotic and basically non-existent. If you've been into the Public Works Department at the moment and walk into the stores as they stand right now, you'll find boxes and boxes and boxes of documents that really need to be gone through, refiled, reassessed, and put in the right place. And quite honestly, that is about the same amount of time that should currently is be spent on permits would be spent on filing and document management systems. Answer the question? Any questions on that?
Jordan.
How long have we not had a office specialist?
I've always had an office specialist. The office specialist exists and has for as long as I've been there.
So when our permanent office specialist left, we hired a temp, and so we've had somebody filling that position, but it was a temporary position, and so, there was some training, and there was some, we're not going to necessarily give all the duties, so it hasn't been as realized, and that position currently does building permits. So
Okay.
So hopefully I can answer the question again, and apparently I was too far away from the microphone.
No, I guess just the way that you made it sound is like there hasn't been anyone doing that job for quite a while, is I guess the
Okay.
way you made it sound.
No, what I tried to say is that there hasn't been anyone doing the filing and the document management part of the work, and therefore stuff is not filed correctly, and we don't have a good document management or filing system as it stands right now. The person that's been in post most recently has initiated document management, but really didn't get to it because of the permitting work that she was doing. Okay, and that's been moved out so that the new person that comes in can, in actual fact, look after and handle the document management and filing systems.
Thank you.
Any further questions on that? No? Okay, so let's move to, I'm going to go to memo 2 first and answer the question, do the staff create master plans that are missing? The staff do not create the master plans directly themselves. The staff, in actual fact, coordinate and manage the production of master plans, and that is done by putting out an RFP, and we select the most appropriate person to, in actual fact, consulting engineering company to, in actual fact, produce the master plans. Secondly, how close to being done are they? Okay, so there are essentially 5 sets of master plans, and they cover probably about 13 different asset classes. I'm going to say that we will have one further master plan package come into Public Works, which will be facilities, once facilities moves to Public Works after this budget round, we hope. The master plans are done, as I explained the other day. A master plan is essentially a 20 to 30 year forward look for capital expenditure work, and they are meant to be reviewed by legislation, regulation on a 5-year rolling basis. So we've got 5 of them, so we should be doing one every year to, in actual fact, keep up to date. But in actual fact, we are way behind the 8 ball as it stands right now. It takes about 15 to 18 months to review, revise, update and approve a master plan. Currently, we have the stormwater system is out under production at the moment, and that is about 12 months into its 18-month review period. The next master plans that will be picked up under this biennium budget are the Transportation Master Plan and the Water Systems Master Plan. The water and park. Oh, we're doing parks.
We budgeted for them.
We budgeted for parks, and the reason that we've actually budgeted for the 3, if not 4, including facilities, is that we are anticipating taking on the infrastructure planning manager, and that person will be targeted to, in actual fact, manage this in a much closer vein and undertake more of the work on an in-house basis rather than relying totally on outside consultant activities. So I hope that's answered the second part of the question, Jonathan.
It's actually Luke.
It was Luke that asked it, was it? I'm sorry. I'm looking at the
Jonathan
wrong
asked the
person.
really long one.
Okay. The next part, I'll cut it down to just at this much, Jonathan, I promise. Sorry.
We're not supposed to name who asked these questions.
Oh, we're not? Okay, I'm sorry.
We're not putting anybody on the spot.
Okay, so that person over there then, if we prioritise those being completed in this budget cycle, will the current capital outlay projects get completed faster, is what I believe the question is really trying to say. The answer is straight and simple no. And master plans do not directly relate to project production. They set the priorities for projects to be selected and put in the heap, as opposed to, in actual fact, going to finishing or approaching or forcing a project to move forward. So the priority and reality, the implementation of a project is more contingent on the funds available than it is in having it identified in a master plan. Any questions? Good. Okay, let's get to the 4-page. The answer is no. In reality, I have not answered strictly, totally the question that is asked. There are several pieces that I cannot answer because I do not have the information, data, or able to, in actual fact, contribute or put the information down as it stands right now. What I have presented here, and I'd like to refer directly to the table at the end of the 4 pages, is given a summary of the plans that we're actually doing that gives you a capital replacement cost for the assets within those category classes, and an estimate based on age, and I stress it's based on age at the moment, of poor to failing assets in those category classes. So if we run through it really quickly, we've got planned streets, water treatment, water distribution, water reservoirs, water pump stations, wastewater treatment facilities, wastewater collection systems, wastewater pump stations, stormwater collection systems, parks, facilities and plants. And as an overall summary, we are looking that we have about 24% of our assets that are in poor to failing condition. Now, I'm going to explain poor to failing. Poor to failing does not mean that the thing does not work. It means that it's in a condition that it is stressed under its operation, and potentially it is not functioning to its to the capability of the demand requirements. When we say that it's functionally failed, it has actually stopped producing meeting the demand requirement. When it's totally failed, the thing will not work at all. When we say that something is in poor condition, let's look at it on a 5 rational scale. So we've got excellent, very good, good, poor, failed. Okay, so I'm talking about the last 2 categories of poor to failed. Those two categories are about 24%. If you look at it on a normal distribution, with that should be about 9% at max. Okay, so we are well over, but I'll also stress that we're well under the national average, which is about 35%. Okay, so I don't. Are there any? I'm going to stop there and allow questions at this time, but that gives you a broad coverage and a broad summary of where I believe they are. Julia said I was only allowed to talk for 2 minutes.
Jordan.
Will SDCs cover some of these failing assets in terms of like capital improvements?
SDCs are only allowed to be applied to growth projects. SDCs cannot be applied to renewal or replacement of existing assets.
So, like for instance, for like when we have our stormwater, like when these different pots of money, when we have our stormwater or our water, like we can only add on to our stormwater?
No, that's not. No. Are you utilising SDCs? Yes, that is correct. SDCs can only be used for growth. They can't be used for anything else. They can't be used for renewal, replacement, or fixing or repair. They have to be used for growth.
So like our water, our water plant, or our wastewater plant, we're talking about with, hold on, okay. My question, so when we got together with Sublimity and we were talking about potentially raising our SDC charges and why we would need to do those and the growth, like what would need to happen? Like what kind of stormwater things need to happen to grow?
So
What would we use that money for?
So I can answer.
If we can't use it on what we already have at the plant.
So for wastewater, it's going to be larger pipes. So our sewer upsizing projects are SDC eligible, partially SDC eligible. At the wastewater treatment plant, the additional SBR, that would be growth related or partially growth related. Stormwater would be a new water quality facility that can detain more water associated with growth. For transportation, it's going to be a new street connection or a wider, like, portion, like if you're going from a 2-lane to a 4-lane, that additional capacity is what you're paying for. For a park, it's going to be a new play structure, a new gazebo. But once you've built it, it's not growth related anymore. We should be being able to take care of it ourselves with our taxes, fees, those types of things. And so that's why we have our charges for service, right? Our water rates, and then you also have your water SDCs.
So we could build a bigger pipe to connect to the system that we have, but we couldn't fix the system that we have. We'd have to build a new system with the SDC charges.
It has to be, okay, let's look at it this way. We've got a sewer pipe. I'm just going to make stuff up here, right? Okay, just to give an example. So we've got a 12-inch pipe as it stands right now carrying sewer to the wastewater treatment plant in some area inside the city. We then have a subdivision and that pipe fails, okay? As it stands today, it fails. So we're not adding anything to it. So we've still got the same connections to it. We've got the same people delivering to it. We've got the same use of that pipe. Then that must be only fixed with your rates and fees.
Well, I know that. Yes,
okay. So we've now got, if there is a subdivision adding to that, or it's growing in the future, or there's a potential development going to feed into that pipe, then we can use SDCs to upsize that 12-inch pipe to a 15 or an 18 or whatever it requires. So the difference in cost between putting in the 12-inch pipe and the 15-inch pipe is SDC eligible. But the 12-inch piece of pipe is not eligible for SDCs.
I think another way of looking at it is it's not the developer's responsibility to fix something that we didn't take care of. It's our responsibility to fix something that we didn't take care of. It's their responsibility to not cost us any more money because of their increased capacity.
Okay, I'm not going to continue on that line of questioning. Never mind. Continue.
I feel that I'm not answering your question.
You're not, but I'm not gonna continue on that. It's fine.
Okay. Any other questions?
May I ask a question that could be like a part 2 from what you just said, Julia? I've been thinking about this the last couple of days, only because community development has told us that there are some things hopefully coming up. So I'll admit I don't understand a lot about system development charges. So if another apartment complex comes up, because the one up by Verizon is already gone, the one down by Shell McDonald's, I think they're already letting people in. If we have other big projects or a little housing tract come up, how long, let's say we were able to upsize from a 12 to a 15 because something new came in, how long does that fee for putting in apartments or 10 or 20 new houses, how long will that cover all those people living here for 30 or 80 or 100 years?
So,
the master plan, as I said a minute ago, is, as it stands today, master plans have a 20 to 30 year life. So in the master plan, it's planning for growth outside up to 30 years. And therefore, we're building in, using the 12 and the 15 example, in the development of a new pipe or a replacement pipe, and we look at the master plan and it says that we have an ability or a need for a 12-inch pipe in 30 years, sorry, a 30-inch pipe or a 20-inch pipe or whatever it is, in 30 years, we can use SDCs to put that growth in place. So that's part of the master plan exercise, is determining how long that pipe or what your expectation is for that pipe. And then the SDCs can be applied to the difference of what's existing and what we would potentially put in to satisfy that estimated or assumed demand in the future.
And what we should be doing, and we have done this to a certain extent, but with more information we will do it better, is so you have your SDCs and you can pay for some things with SDCs. We should be thinking about our maintenance costs, our operational costs, our depreciation costs, and that is built into your utility rates, and we should be regularly looking at that and making, truing that up on a more regular basis than I think we historically had. I think, we just, fairly recently did our utility rate study so that when, as more people come in, maybe they're contributing enough to the system that you don't, I know Brian's shaking his head. Possibly, maybe it's lower, or you've got newer stuff, so you don't have the same maintenance levels, but then you need to have some depreciation costs. So that's all stuff that's looked at for the rate study, and you're kind of doing them all. You're doing the master plan or asset management, you're doing the rate study, and the SDCs, and you should be updating those and looking at those on a fairly regular basis, at least every 5 years.
To give you an example, James has just passed me the last wastewater master plan evaluation 2021, and I'll give you two examples. The pipeline upsizing in Jeddah and Ida Street, it was eligible for a 6% SDC allocation. Okay, so it's saying that the oversizing of that pipe was 6%. We've added 6% in gross to that pipe. The winter equalization plant or piece of equipment, we say that that's 100% eligible for growth. Okay, so it's not a consistent number that SDCs is across the board. It depends on how and what the actual project is and how it's affected by growth outside its existing use. Does that help? Any?
Thanks. And remind me again, the newer apartment complex down by Shell, how many units is that? Is it 80 or 100 or?
I believe that's 80, 100.
That one's 100, yeah.
One myself.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions on question 8?
That was more than 2 minutes.
I know. So that's all the questions that we received, and I think it's now up to you guys to...
Just a real
Mr.
quick
Carey?
question on the streets. I'm going to go back to number 8 on the streets real quick. On the budget, 40-80-55190 is streets. And,
What page are you on?
oh my goodness, I'm glad you'd ask that. 63, and then I got the street fund budget. So the details.
Okay.
But there's 2 different line items for streets. One for 250,000, one for $1 million. I'm looking at the category details.
And what code did you say?
55190 and 75610.
Okay.
My question is just why are there 2 different line items?
I think I can answer that. One is maybe I can't. I know the 250, I believe, is the TSP, so it's probably SDC transfer. No, James, why don't you answer that?
Okay. The 250,000 is for street reconstruction, and that money is basically designed for reconstruction that would happen in the future. So the streets aren't specifically identified, but possible ones are Kindle or Third. So that's designed for reconstruction. And then the $1 million on code ending in 55190 is for slurry and crack seals.
So that's different than this overlays and slurry seals of 2 million?
Yes, the overlays is different. That's 2 million. That's a capital. Those are basically new streets.
So that's like what we're doing
Okay.
for West Town
Okay.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Steve.
So one thing we never mentioned was the bridge on East Water Street.
That's good.
I don't think we have a plan on what we're going to do with that, or so we didn't set anything aside for that at all.
That is correct. Yeah, I mean, that would be a good council conversation of what a long-term plan might look like. You know, frankly, it's going to be millions of dollars to fix, and it's probably, given the amount of traffic that would be anticipated on that street, it's probably not the highest priority. That doesn't mean we can't still apply for bridge replacement grants, but in the grand scheme of state funding for bridge replacement, that's probably not going to rank super high because of the
Right.
low volume of trips. And so that is something that we should have a conversation about, though, of like, what do we want to ultimately do there? You know, do we leave it as it is, or do we do something, you know, permanent to sort of block it permanently, or do we go in earnest and try to find some solution to funding it? But that is not included in the budget.
If we did get a grant, would we have to do some sort of matching funds?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, would you like to recognize the person next to you?
Or not.
Or not?
Brian.
Thank you, sir. Let me start off by saying thank you for doing this exercise about where the additional 15% would come from. I think that was thoughtful. I think it was well researched. Yeah, my mic's on. Well, that's why we need the microphone thing. So let me start off on a couple things here, and if I'm wrong or mistaken, please correct me. I have some questions, and then I would like to make some motions after those questions are validated and or corrected. So I'd like to start off by saying, number one, I met with RDS yesterday, Revitalize Downtown Stayton, and just so everyone is aware, they are in favor of the streetlight project. So they wanted me to convey that to everybody here. So there you go. My first question would be, I think we have the money right here in the budget without making too many adjustments. And I'm going to highlight a couple things and ask the question. So first one is a statement, and it's on page 30 of the general fund. And there's $50,000 set aside for urban renewal area plan. And that looks like a carryover from the prior 24-25. My statement to that is I appreciate the education that we had on that earlier this year. This is put before the voters twice in Stayton. There's no appetite for it. Without a heavy education campaign this next time, I don't know that it would pass again. So I would consider that some money to be used for the streetlight fee, if that's a possibility. The $30,000 on the next line for the Sustainable City of the Year program through the University of Oregon. I expressed my concerns about that when we had the work session. And so I have some research here that Julia kindly provided to me. And so I want to give you all some examples of what took place, how the other cities used that particular $30,000 or whatever the cost was. So from the city of Silverton, well, again, it's the situation we have here. So the city of Silverton, what some of the outcomes of their Sustainable City of the Year program was, or some of the targets that they had. One of them was climate action recommendations, passive heating strategies, stormwater improvements, and then catalyzing community feedback and engagement in Silverton. So there's that. The city of Lane Transit District, they have a couple of things like Coburg bicycle tourism, bike share neighborhood assessment, the future of transit, payroll tax and financial visualization scenario planning, fleet replacement and climate action planning. Springfield has some things called passive heating strategies for disaster relief. Land use planning again, future proofing comprehensive plans in Eugene and Gresham. I don't know how that's on there, but I see there are two things here. So just a couple of examples of what this has been used for in other communities. I would tell you that this is probably, for me in my mind, here's another one for Troutdale, and they have climate resiliency crosswalk. And then wildfire hazard and wind energy potential code amendments. So those are the kind of samples of stuff that the other cities have used, and without having a designated list of us for us, that I don't know that we do. We might, I don't know. I would say we're not. This is something that this $30,000 could be used later in a better way in my mind. So that's two things that we have there that just to look at those two pieces of items would cover the street fee without making any cuts to anybody else. So indulge me just for a minute real quick. That was that for the general fund. We were talking about the pool. And I appreciate the recommendations from the second 15%. The pool had an audit done. And we had the results of those audits shared with the council. And there's a list of like 9 or 10 priority things that are on there. If you look at the budget, and I think it was I don't know what page it was now, there's $20,000 set aside to paint the floor of the pool. That was not one of the priorities of the audit. And that was actually, I believe, and I don't want to point fingers, but I think that was a recommendation from one of the members of the pool or anybody on the council or somebody. Go ahead.
Okay. So with the pool, specifically with the pool facility audit, there's the one big ticket item in the capital for the slide suction to look at that. Yep. There are many other things that are lower priced and it already been resolved or are in building maintenance. Okay. So they're being addressed there. And I don't know, I think you're talking about the locker rooms.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
That's in the budget,
I think we budgeted $20,000 and I was just talking with Emily about that. That's actually going to be an endowment.
Okay.
Funded pretty much everything in the capital. I wasn't at the meeting with the endowment. I was ill that day, but I think James was everything in capital. 100,000. Yeah, so almost all of those will be endowment funded.
Okay, so it's still in the budget just to follow money.
Yes, okay. And the locker rooms, the reasoning for doing the locker room flooring is they are very slippery. We've had people fall. Our pool manager has actually had near falls in there, and so we want to make sure we get that addressed. That's why we included that.
Copy that. My question there was, my highlight there was, I think anything that we have budgeted for the pool that can wait should wait until the levy is addressed by the voters. I did have a question about $10,000 set aside for economic development strategy for page 39 of the general fund. Can you just elaborate on what that is? Do you know?
Page 39. I think that, Jennifer, maybe you could come up and speak to that. I think that was kind of a placeholder just to give us some opportunities to do some more economic development. But can you speak to that $10,000?
Sure. I think that Julia was talking to the person that had done the plan for us in 2019, and we were just looking to update that plan and using those funds as a consultant to do that.
Thank you, Jennifer. That actually, so I think the idea is to refresh the demographic and data into the current, it's been, I think, 5 years since that probably was started, so it's to update that and refresh it.
Okay, that cost 10 grand?
Everything costs money, but that was a quote. We want to make sure we have enough money to do the project.
Those are just two things that I wanted to highlight. I got more, but I'm going to wait and yield to somebody else. I do have one last question, though. Is the $5 million that's earmarked for the roundabout, is that an enterprise fund?
Sorry. The street fund is not an enterprise fund. It's a special, I think it's special revenue, it's not an enterprise fund.
Okay, so that
capital project.
So that $5 million now it is in the budget designated for the roundabout.
But it's contingent on us getting the federal funding.
Correct.
$4 million federal grant, yeah.
Correct. Okay, I'll come back, I'll yield and keep going later.
Jonathan?
Oh, no.
I have a question about the U of O program. Who is going to be setting up what I believe the students, the grad students probably are going to be doing? Who gives them the instructions for what projects they're working on?
We do. And Jennifer might come up, and we had a meeting with the faculty a few months ago to discuss the possibilities. And so we would be creating what we want them to be doing. We would say, here's the work and here's the outcome. So I think the projects that Brian cited were what those communities wanted. They're not driven by the students or the faculty, they're driven by us, and they're doing what we're asking them to do.
So, Jennifer, I guess, what were some of the things that you had discussed prior or had thought you could have them doing for us?
Sorry. So definitely we spoke to them. We have not developed a full list, but they did tell us to give them about 6 different items. But I clearly was going to have those items from the goals, which are looking at the economic development strategies as one large item, and a housing strategy. Those were the 2 things that were from planning that were city council goals, and we felt that we could make those projects for them, suggest them, but we haven't done it yet, so we were...
And so in the attachment 1 of the supplemental memo number 1, everything that says C number 7, so there's number 7, and then all the things that say C number 7, those are the goals that we think they're good projects that the students could assist us on. And at the end of the day, it is up to the Budget Committee and the Council on this funding. I just want to make it really clear that if we do not have the money to do that, it is very likely that we will not be able to accomplish any of those goals that are listed as number 7. All of those, if we were to do them with a consultant, would be significantly more.
So, to continue, it sounds like you're having the students help us with just basically doing our planning, doing, like Julia was saying, the consultant type work to figure out our plans for housing and infrastructure, economic development going forward.
Yes, so example of one of the objectives, and identify barriers to economic development and look for possible solutions. So a lot of my job obviously is reviewing the applications that come in. So I have a lot of applications, so sometimes I don't have that much time to look into reviewing our strategies that we currently have, that they would be fresh eyes, graduate students. I've been there. I've been a graduate student in planning, and I've done these kinds of studios work before, and they really know the most up-to-date information usually. including,
Okay, so we're not going to be having them trying to develop climate-resistant sidewalks
Exactly.
and environmentally friendly bike paths.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
Jordan?
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I don't know if this is a question or statement, but we have several assets that I feel like I ask this almost every budget committee, but we have the Moose Lodge, we own Star Cinema, the building, we have this community center, we have the courthouse, we have all these spaces that I just feel like some of them are very underutilized. We have the courthouse we use once a week, like 3 times a month. The community center, it gets utilized, but I feel like it could be used more. Like those in particular, I'd love to, budget committee is not necessarily the place to do that, but I really feel like the city has revenue generating assets that we just don't utilize. And we have opportunities like our parks. We gave the go ahead to rent them out, but we haven't been advertising that. We don't advertise our community center. Like our pool, we do advertise the pool, but we talked about doing activities there. We talked about getting sponsorships, so the pool could raise some more money, and we haven't done any of that. And that's something that I would really like to see is some, again, revenue generating activities so that these assets are making more money for themselves and not just pulling from the general fund.
I would heard. And I think we are aware of that, and we are continuing to try to do that. And certainly, when our new community engagement coordinator comes on, that that will be part of their tasks and portfolios, is to kind of just share the community with more of the community. I would also just really encourage. That's a really important council goal. If that's a council, that's the type of thing that I think should be elevated. If that's where you want us to be really digging in and spending time, energy, resources, just make sure that that's being shared at that stage too, just for future. But that said, you don't have to wait 2 years for us to hear you.
Okay. We're waiting for people who have questions and everything before we because you wanted to make a motion, so I'm going to wait for you.
Steve?
I just want to, first of all, thank Julie and the staff, because I had a lot of questions on Wednesday, and they did a really good job answering a lot of stuff that I had, so I appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. I had one more question on the Sustainable City Year program. Jennifer, did you say they were grad students or these undergrad students doing this? Sorry to get you up.
I think it's both. I think it's just based on, we share what the project is, and they match students with the projects that we want achieved, and I think they...
That is true, but I did get the feeling that they were going to use graduate students probably for the economic development, because there is a graduate planning school that does economic development. So likely they would use graduate students. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, I don't know how any undergrads are going to come up with plans for the city. Honestly, I've been a grad student, I've been an undergrad student. I just can't see a lot of value added for some undergrads doing some studies for the city for $30,000. So.
Well, and just to be clear, we're not letting them loose and saying, go off and do your thing and come back to us and give us something. They will be doing a lot of legwork. It will also take a lot of our time too, but we'll be able to do so much more with so many more brains at a much reduced cost than hiring consultants.
Okay, all right, I'm just teetering on the fence on this one. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Walker?
I don't want to seem dense, but I still don't understand the $5 million for the roundabout. Is it in the budget? Is it not in the budget? What's going on?
The budget includes $5 million for the roundabout, and that's $4 million from a grant that we don't have yet. So it's only if we get the grant would we proceed with the project. The grant includes a 20% match, so that's why there's another $1 million there. So we have $5 million allocated to that project over the next 2 years. The reality is it probably wouldn't all get spent in the next 2 years. It's a large project that is contingent upon the stormwater detention facility, and the reality is also that the total cost of the roundabout is probably a little bit more than that. But again, it's a large project that'll take years to complete.
So we could take that $1 million and put it somewhere else.
That's right. The $1 million is from the SDC fund, so that has to be used on new projects such as the roundabout.
Else.
Well, right now, I think the only SDC eligible roads that we have are Kindle Way, which is not completely built out yet, and we're kind of waiting on the park to be constructed, or the base of it. So Kindle Way and the roundabout are our two main SDC funded roads that we have identified.
It wouldn't pay for road improvements. It would not pay for road improvements. It would not pay for reconstruction of existing streets.
SDCs.
Brian?
Oh, thank you. I was trying to remember what I was going to say. I guess I understand the back and forth between the use of the sustainable city discussion. I guess for me, the discussion is what has tangible results today that people can really see, and what is the demand from the community as far as the lights go. The sustainable city program might be a good thing to do, but is now the appropriate time to do that? We're all talking about economic development, the roundabout being one of it, but you just heard that it's probably not going to happen for a while, and so I would like to see us utilize the money now in the real time that has actual tangible results. And so that's why I'm advocating to strike the $30,000 towards the Sustainable City program and put it towards the streetlights.
Jonathan?
I would like to look at page 36 of your packets. So I just wanted to point out that we did see last meeting that staff had already found us 286.
I'm sorry, Jonathan. I think what you're referring to is the presentation.
The presentation,
Yeah.
sorry. Presentation, not your books. So staff had already given us a almost $287,000 in cuts that they could do that were from the general fund. Is that correct? Which the streetlights are part of. This is the staff's first recommendation for things that should be cut. 36. So it's the community center audiovisual technology upgrades, which is the basically $150,000. Replacing our floors, which is $73,000, and then the Marion County Radio project. James, is it correct that it was about $65,000 that we would need in order to do the streetlight project this year?
Yes.
So if we were to cut replacing the floors in the community center, we could fund the streetlights from that money?
Yes.
Okay. So I feel like we should be focusing more on making the cuts that were recommended to us for the community center, because yes, we should replace the asbestos floors, but we can live without that. Yes, it would be nice to have the audiovisual, but I mean, the use of the Zoom calls, we know is not that many people watching council. So, I mean, spending $150,000 to improve that is a lot of money compared with being able to get the consulting work and economic planning for $30,000 at a much cheaper rate than from consultants. To me, it seems that's more cost-effective than spending, that would be, what, 7 times as much money to help improve people being able to watch our city council meetings on YouTube, and we know how well those are attended. So I would recommend that we don't start making cuts to anything until we've decided what we are doing with the monies that were already recommended for cuts.
David? Come on.
Dang, all right. I was putting my placard down because honestly I thought committee member Ort might say the same thing, but I just want to staunchly, no offense to you, disagree with you, Member Penrice, about the importance of those upgrades. The reason being is you're right, absolutely. There are several meetings that I would say are not well attended and the audience is nowhere. But this continues to be something that enables folks to go back and watch meetings, and we continue to struggle with these issues where people can't hear when they come to these meetings, and honestly, that ruins the engagement. People aren't going to the resources much because they're like, well, I can't hear the meeting. What's the point? And then in addition to that, it's really difficult to understand who's saying what, and I just think that, yes, you're right, it is a lot of money, but I guess I'm advocating at a committee level here, not as a counselor, just as a member, saying I think this increases engagement and it's worthy of further consideration. I get your point. It's literally 5 times as much as the 30,000. I get that, but I just want to argue in favor of that, and I actually agree with a lot of what you said right there.
I'm going to go with Mr. Walker.
I agree with the mayor. I think $30,000 can be reallocated to the... I believe that the $30,000 can be reallocated towards a street light, and that's one of the places that we can make changes and move money around, and I fully support that.
If I could I just want to make sure, just because there's a lot of things that have been discussed and going on. In number 5, I just want to make it clear that proposed cut would allow you to do the streetlight project without any additional cuts. So if those cuts were made, that frees up $65,000 that would allow you to do the streetlight project. I just want to make that really clear.
What page is that on, Julia?
That's on page 3 of the supplemental meeting, or supplemental memo number 1.
I'm not cutting PD. I'm not cutting the police department. There's no reason to cut the police department.
It was between Steve or Jordan. One of you go. Tussle over it.
Thanks, Jordan. So there's also some cuts I was looking at too. I think Julie answered most of my questions when I talked to her, but there's still a few that bother me. The gazebo at Sandy M Park. I mean, $40,000 to replace some posts there. So that, I get we have cuts and we've made cuts so we can do the lights, but that $40,000 just bothers me about replacing some posts on a gazebo. I mean, honestly, I'd rather demo the thing and get rid of it than spend $40,000 on a gazebo, but that's just me. And there's definitely, I saw you put in there if we reduce the transfers to the facilities fund to $50K a year, I think it was approximately $80,000 you could put somewhere else. But that was another thing I was thinking about. I know we've funded the lights already. You put some stuff in there, but I was actually looking for some savings to add more to the street fund myself. So $20,000 for pool paint, which you said was going to come out of the Friends of the Pool Fund or something like that, that $100,000. What's that?
The endowment.
The endowment, thank you. It's one of my relatives, so I should know that. I just never met her. But I think there's still some meat on the bone if we wanted to add more to streets. I don't know about the feelings for that, but I think we could probably pull out quite a bit, just with what the mayor said as far as some of the cuts and some of the ones I'm suggesting, like the facilities fund and getting rid of replace the post on the park gazebo, things like that. But that was all I was thinking.
And just to be clear, the park gazebo post would not be able to benefit the general, or the street fund, because that's in the parks fund.
Yeah, but we could reduce the transfer to the parks fund. That's how we would go about that.
Now, Jordan.
Thank you. So my two things that I would like to see funded were the streetlights, the 65,000, and I would like to see 100,000 more over the 2 years be put into the streets. Because I was mistakenly thinking that 286,000 a year was going in, and it's only over the 2 years for the
franchise fee.
for the franchise fees. And I thought it was 286 a year, and that's for 2 years. So I got confused. So I would like to see us put 200,000 from the general fund into the streets personally. So that's what I would like to see. Steve, I like your ideas about the gazebo. My idea was at Pioneer Park, one of the gazebos, I believe, has a little placard on it that says that the roof was donated, and it gave me the idea that maybe we could get a sponsorship, possibly.
And the Parks Board is discussing existing structures that are sponsored and what to do going forward with things. So that is something that the Parks Board is discussing.
Yeah, so maybe we could look at something like that instead of spending the money on it. And then also we have kind of gone rounds about the transportation study. And my thought on it is, Julie, I believe you said it was between $20,000 to $30,000 for us to do another transportation study, and I'm personally over it, and I feel like I don't want to spend that much money on it for them to come back and tell us almost exactly the same thing. Like if they come back and tell us the same thing, I might lose it. So I really feel like we should just move on with it and not spend the money on doing another one personally, and then we can use that money somewhere else, like the street lights. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
Mr. Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So back to this gazebo, 40,000, is that for materials and labor? And also an idea, is there a way that we could reach out to our local high school, maybe an Eagle Scout, that could possibly help in making that happen without spending that $40,000 and give him the project or the school the project?
So we can discuss that with Bob. My understanding is that the gazebo, when it was constructed, this is the Santa Ana Park gazebo, was not constructed properly, and that the posts need to be are being replaced sort of like one a year. And so that's, I think, just, maybe that actually is a full replacement of all of them. I can't recall.
I think 4 have been done, and this would be the other 4.
Okay, thank you.
So half of it is done.
Yeah. And we certainly could look into that. I mean, and I guess I would, again say, just because it's budgeted doesn't mean that we can't seek other sources to fund things. And then to Steve Sims's comment, demoing something costs money too. So it would probably cost, a bit of money to demo something, and it's a fairly new gazebo. So I want to put that out there.
We could do a learn to burn for the fire department. That'd be perfect.
Jonathan, and then Denise, please.
I guess this is kind of something more like a point of order. Are we in just comment period, or are we supposed to be discussing a motion?
No, we haven't had a motion.
So we're just
discussion.
So we're okay.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, it is a good point that you are discussing. And I guess just another reminder, we take the feedback, and we take the feedback, but you do adopt a budget at the fund level, not the line item level. So just kind of, I know you're sort of getting into some very specifics of we can cut this, but what you're really talking about is cutting certain funds by X amount, increasing certain funds by that same amount. Or increasing that in the unappropriated, or increasing that in the contingency.
Okay.
Denise.
Just listening to some of this and kind of reflecting back to some of the conversations we had, I do agree that our streets need to be done and we need to push as much money, but I also see in here that we had money for the streets and it wasn't all spent because we only have so much time. So with parks, I see some of these line items, and we're talking about pulling the gazebo. It sounds like the gazebo might actually be a little bit of a safety issue. We can't have bad posts because if it comes down during the winter or wait or whatever, that's not good. But I also think we need to remember that our parks have failing equipment, and the parks are there for a reason. And if we don't if we want to take money away from something here that we don't agree with, I don't know if I agree with it going to the streets. I think the park money needs to go within the park, and we have to start looking at that equipment, because if that all starts getting red taped, then what's the benefit of having the parks if our families can't enjoy them? So just a general comment.
Jordan.
Thank you. I wanted to make a comment about the streets. I understand that we don't always spend the money that's in there, but it gets rolled over. And one of the reasons that we've had to raise our street fees is that we don't have money when we need it. And so I don't understand why we can't put money into our street fund so that we have it when we need it. Because isn't that the whole reason that we don't have money we keep saying we don't have money for our streets, and we'll never have money for our streets if we don't put money into the street fund. Right? Am I wrong here?
I'm not going to disagree with that, but I do just want to make a comment. And it goes back to what I said about restricted and not restricted funds. Just that I understand we want to pay more for streets, and if we have projects, then we should transfer money there and do the projects. But if we're not spending the money, then as the finance officer, I have to say I would not recommend transferring general fund money to the street fund, because you're taking unrestricted money and restricting it and not spending it. So just to transfer it there, to keep it there and not spending it, I would prefer just to keep it in the general fund, but you could earmark it for streets when you're ready to spend it, and you can transfer it from the general fund at any time.
But then
when it's ready.
Why are we raising money? Why are we raising transportation funds and not just pulling it out of the general fund?
Because transportation funds are dedicated to streets and they have to be spent on streets. which is a good practice. You'd raise transportation fees for transportation uses.
I still say that we should be putting money every year towards our streets because people are paying property taxes every year in the expectation that we are maintaining the streets that they are using.
Jonathan and Denise, could you put your cards down if you...
Actually, no,
Okay. I'm going to go to Leonard.
This might be just giving information to the other budget committees and anybody that doesn't know, because I do not know if there's anybody here that has a good firsthand knowledge of the gazebo at Santiam Park. But just yesterday, I actually went back twice to look at it very close. And I even have 2 pictures if anybody wants to see. And that does not mean I'm happy about it. Okay? There's 8 posts. 4 have been replaced with pressure-treated posts, and the other 4 are, I can't say exactly which wood, but they look like pine, but I'm not sure. But they're just wood. They're not pressure-treated at all. That I did see. Also, on that gazebo down below, there is masonry. So that means when you're removing a post, you're also removing a lot of slated brick-type masonry. Is the $40,000 $10,000 a post? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a question I don't think you can answer. When doing the first 4, why weren't 2 done on one side and 2 done on the other to keep it what I would consider stable if we decided not to approve the $40,000?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, I just feel like if it's going to come up as a safety thing, then we're being forced into that because it's not. It actually looks really good and it looks stable. But is somebody saying it's going to lean at some point here pretty soon? Because one side's just regular wood and the other side is pressure treated?
Yeah, I think that it's what they're trying to do in the Parks Department is be proactive before it becomes a safety problem. So I think that, and I think at one point he was doing 1 a year. I think this is allowing them to do, just finish it. So I don't think they're imminently failing, but they need to be done. And thank you, you pointed out that was the issue, is that it wasn't done with the right wood.
Jonathan, back to you.
I have 2 points, 1 question, and then I guess general, my opinion statement. First off, about the community center upgrades, I don't know if you guys would know this. Would we be able to separate out doing the AV repair and doing the floor repairs, or they need to be done simultaneously to reduce the costs?
They would be 2 separate vendors.
Okay.
That's what you're asking.
So those are not
Yeah, they
tied
could.
together, so we can
Correct.
cut one and do the other.
You just risk, like I was saying, right now, you've got tiles peeling up, and we can't get replacements. So that's
But we could push
what we
push
run
one of
into.
the
But yes,
projects
it could
to-
be, yeah.
Okay, so we could just push one to another biennium and do them staggered, not at the same time, and it not really have a major effect, correct, Alyssa?
Yeah.
Alyssa, yes.
I would say with time likely comes more money, so the cost will likely increase, and then we also, as Alyssa said, run the risk of failure, not being able to be replaced.
Well, and I think also, I'll just point this out also, to go to Councilor Ort's point of trying to modernize the facility and make it more desirable for rentals. In turn, we could charge more than what we're charging for rentals now. I know people are coming from Salem and other places because even we raised the rates and they still are coming because our rates are still somewhat low. So just making it more desirable and freshening it up from 1978.
Okay. All right, I appreciate that answer, and I appreciate our dedication to try to take care of our assets. And that kind of gets to me to my next, I guess, overall opinion point, is that we've done a lot of talking about our streets. I know it's a big issue. We've done a lot of talking about how we need to put more money into them and how we need to take care of those assets because they are in that poor and failing condition. But I would like to point out the question that I had asked that got the 4-page response, which was the total of our city's poor and failing assets. If you look at that table, out of the $204 million that we're estimating in poor condition, only $82,000 are in the streets. Yes, that's the largest one, and it is large, but most of our poor and failing assets are not in the streets. Every time we take money from the parks, from the pool, from something else to put it to the streets, we're doing the exact same thing to those assets that got us in this part we are in the streets, which is not taking care of them. I know streets are important, but we should be trying to make sure we're taking care of everything. I see a hand raised.
I just want to correct that. There's
Yes.
82 million.
82 million, yes. 82 million. Sorry, yes, not $82. 82. Oh, if we only had $82 of failed assets for our streets. But yes, that is my point. I get that the streets.
$80 million of poor failing streets.
Is that most of the failures in our assets are in things other than the streets. Those should be taken just as important as our streets. I do not want to see us making major cuts to all of our other funds to fund the streets, because that would just mean that in 15, 20 years, the budget council then is going to be having to deal with our parks failing, our sewer systems failing, everything else failing. I want to fund the streets. I want to do that, and I think we've taken some steps, but I don't want us to focus our efforts solely on that at the expense of everything else.
Brian?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of time, I want to try to move this along, please. So I think I would like to ask what the first issue is, how are we going to fund the $65,000 streetlight project? Is that going to be item number 5 to Julia's report to us, or some other way of doing that? So,
Is that where you want an answer to that, or is that?
I'm trying to get us to a consensus on how we're going to do this. So, Mr. Chair, can we have ask the committee if there's support for option number 5 from Julia? That's how we're going to do this. If that's the case, then we have a majority of the council. I'd like to make a motion for that to be the case.
So maybe
But-
a straw poll, I think, is what you're asking
Correct.
for.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, can you ask the consensus of the committee if they would like to utilize option number 5 from what Julia submitted to us?
Committee, would you like to use option number 5?
So maybe a way to demonstrate is if they support that, maybe put their placard up.
Yeah, that would get us to the, yes, that would get us to the $65,000 for the funds. Looks like you have, Mr. Chair, looks like there's a majority of consensus on this, so with that, I would like to make a motion that in order to fund the 65,000 streetlight conversion project, well, how am I going to do this? Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that in order to make an amendment to the budget to fund the $65,000 streetlight project, we utilize option number 5 of the report from the city manager.
I second it. I second it.
Do we have discussion?
Yes. So it's been motion, yeah, sorry.
We have a motion and a second. If we want to move to a little bit of discussion. Jonathan?
I do not support this cut. Like I said in my first response, that we were given the cuts that staff recommended they would want first. We could cut the community center flooring project and fund the streetlights. Making that one cut would fund the streetlights rather than leaving the library, having the failing phone system, taking away the license plate readers for the police department, cutting some more of the funding of the admin that are doing all of this work for our city. It seems like these are a deeper level cut in number 5 than what staff would want, and I feel like the city having slightly mismatched tiles in the community center is much more bearable than having to take away these funds. I don't feel this should be the first thing we are discussing to fund the streetlights.
David?
Thank you, Chair. Just quick clarification from committee member Penrice. Should the motion before us fail, would you be willing to put that in form of a motion afterwards, sir?
I would.
All right.
Luke?
I would rather see us use some of the sustainable city year program, 30,000 or something like that, as opposed to some of these cuts. I am 100% on board funding the streetlights, but I also see a lot of value in these cuts that have been presented by the city. So I don't want to just make those cuts because I think those would hurt too. But I would go with the 50 and the 30 urban renewal area and the sustainable before I would go with the other cuts. And I will also answer Dave Patty's question. Yes, I would put that forth as a motion next.
Jordan, please.
I'd like to scrap the transportation study in lieu of $20,000 to $30,000 of these cuts.
So just to be clear, right now what's before you is the motion on the table for number 5. People that are saying other things, the motion would have to fail and then another motion be made. I just want to make that.
Yes. The clarification is that that's my reasoning for that I would rather do that than this.
Okay.
I need to point out that that transportation study is funded in the Public Works Admin Fund right now, so it's not related to the general fund.
A clarification on that. Do general fund dollars go to the Public Works Fund?
No.
Do we get to vote on whether or not we do that study?
We can.
We can certainly discuss that, and as the city manager, I would not want to do a project that the majority of my bosses do not think we should be doing.
Fair enough.
Mr. Chair, I call for the question.
Go ahead, Brian.
So,
Okay, I'm sorry. Now we vote.
yeah, when you call the question, basically discussion ends, and then we
Okay.
go to a vote. Are we doing a roll call vote, or do we?
It sounds like maybe we should.
Okay. So I would recommend a roll call vote on the motion to amend the budget in accordance with number 5.
Okay, Melanie, could you please proceed with the roll call vote?
Sure. Steve?
Yes.
Len?
No.
Luke?
No.
Jordan?
No.
Jonathan?
No.
Ken?
Yes.
Denise?
No.
Brian?
No.
Damien?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Failed.
So it failed. So
It failed.
Now we can move on to the next one. Let me get out of here.
6 to 5.
Motion fails 5 to 6. 6 to 5.
6 to 5, one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, there were 6 noes and 5 yeses. Sorry.
Okay, so let's, oh, sorry, I don't want to take over your deal. Time to move on from that. So now we can
Is there another motion, I
Yeah, I was
think?
going to give you. Does anyone else want to do their motion? Oh, Mr. Chair, I don't want to take over.
Jonathan, do you have a question or a statement?
I would like to make a motion. Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we reallocate the $73,500 for the community center flooring. I'd like to make a motion that we reallocate the $73,500 that we're going to the flooring replacement to fund the streetlights.
This is Committee Member Patty. I second that motion.
So now you'll take discussion on that motion.
Do we have a discussion on Jonathan's motion regarding the flooring of the community center? Discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Patty.
Thank you, sir. I just want to advocate for this because I feel like this may be the easiest thing to gain some consensus tonight on. We've had a really robust discussion. It's been 8 hours. I think that's awesome. I think that this is probably the easiest thing here personally, and I just want to advocate for it. I think that Committee Member Penrice, I want to thank you for coming up with this. Appreciate it.
I think maybe I could mention something that might help a little bit. Both of these projects, the AV Community Center upgrade and the flooring upgrade, are in the same fund, same area. So you could just say to reduce those projects, because if the AV project came in much less, maybe there would be enough for the flooring. These are estimates, so you could just say reduce the community fund budget by $73,000 or $65,000.
So we could just, yeah, we can, sorry. I guess I would like to clarify my motion would be that we would be reducing the community center upgrade budgets by the monies needed to fund the streetlight project.
$65,000.
To $65,000.
So you would be amending your motion.
So I amend my motion, and then we would need a second?
Yes, the person who seconded would have to also
Second.
amend.
Okay.
Call for the question.
Parley pro, yes, the question's been called, so then the discussion ends and you take a vote.
Can we have a vote, please, on Jonathan's motion to reduce dollars spent on the community center? And if you all think that you have enough votes one way or another, do you just want to make it an aye or an nay, or do we want to do a roll call?
Probably a roll call for
Okay.
consistency.
Take it away, Melanie.
And can I just I want to repeat the motion as I understand it so everybody's really clear. It sounds like the amended motion was to reduce the community center budget by $65,000 and have that $65,000 allocated to the streetlights. Well, just that's what it would.
So what would the total dollar amount be then for the budget?
For which?
With the reduction on this motion, what would the total dollar amount be? Would cut in half, or what is it? Reduced by 65, sorry.
It would be reduced by 65, so what would the total amount remaining be? Sorry, we're breaking the rules because we're discussing with after the
I'm just trying to
question's
get a
been
total
called.
dollar amount.
160. We take it from like 225 to 160.
Okay.
Approximately.
That's the AV, not the flooring.
It's both.
The whole budget.
Okay. Okay, so that's the motion, is it's reducing the community center budget by $65,000, allocating that $65,000 to the streetlight conversion project. Melanie.
Steve?
Yes.
Lynn?
No.
Luke?
No.
Jordan?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Damien?
To put the street light topic to bed, yes.
David?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Motion passes 8-3.
I'm glad that's fair. Yeah, I want to know what happens when Yeah, that's what, yeah, exactly.
We have a question from Mr. Quigley.
Yeah, it's a hypothetical. So if the bid for the AVL, audiovisual, comes in higher and it's shorter than the funds we have for, we're not going to do it. Correct?
I spoke briefly with Key Code Media and just told them, I'm like, that's when I was trying to get what are some other cities, some examples, and that's when they told me, you know, what they gave us is, and I said that in the memo, what they gave us is what is best suited for us, but there could be some value engineering. I mean, in this price, I had already went through it and was like, you know, those are things we don't need. I had already cut some stuff out of the proposal they had given us, so,
Understand.
yes.
I just want to make sure that, so the funds we have now designated for that project is what?
It was, I think, 150,000 is what we'd put, but now, I mean, because we reduced everything with that motion, so.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Do you know what that total fund is now?
So.
It was 160, I think, is what.
Well, but James mentioned that there's other things in the community center fund.
62,773 right now, whatever.
For just capital, that would be capital, yeah.
Okay.
The community center flooring project is also kind of in two parts. There's the main area and then the foyer. And so the main area was estimated at $48,500 and the foyer 25,000. So just pointing that out.
Jordan, you have a question?
No, I want to make a motion. Lost my page. I would like to make a motion to reduce the contribution to the facilities funds to $50,000 a year for a total of $100,000 over the 2 years, and move $82,000 from the general fund, an extra $82,000 from the general fund to the street fund.
Do we have a second on?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Gordon?
I'd like to make a motion that we reduce the contributions to the facilities fund from $100,000 over the 2 years. No, wait. This is where it gets confusing. Let me go back. I'd like to make a motion that we reduce the contributions to the facilities fund to $50,000 instead of $100,000 a year. And because it was, oh my gosh, and move a total of $82,000 over the 2 years. What would that be? $41,000 a year from the general fund into the street fund. An extra $41,000 a year into the street fund. A mere $41,000 into the street
I will
fund.
second that motion.
Discussion?
Discussion on Jordan's motion.
If I could plead my case. 2 years ago, we did the community grant for $40,000. And at that time, we talked about, you know, we raised it to $40,000. And some would argue money well spent. That's fine. But also, this year, even when we were giving out the grants, we had comments on the city, or on the city page, and people said, "Hey, what about our streets?" So that's just a that's just a little testament to, like, people want us to spend money on our streets. So that's why I'm advocating to put $41,000 extra into our street fund.
We'll continue with discussion on Jordan's motion. I think, Luke, you were up first, and then Jonathan, and then Mr. Patty.
Where's the discrepancy from the 100, if we remove $100,000 from the fund, we're only getting 82,000 back. What's the discrepancy on that?
It's from the Public Works admin, assuming they would be in a new city hall or funded by a facility that we're trying to save for. So they are contributing $17,879 per 100,000, and that's not in the general fund.
Jonathan.
I guess I have kind of a two parts to this. First off, what is the facilities fund for? Because I've heard that it's for this new thing we're saving for, but it's also been described like it's doing a lot of repairs to maintain what we have. So is, like what is the actual real purpose of this fund existing?
So James is looking for the slide, and we'll fill in more information. We do need to still have a conversation with council about the quantifying, codifying, if you will, through a resolution of what that is for. The original intent was it was a new city hall facility. I think we're also using it now for some remodel and renovation and some maintenance, some higher ticket maintenance projects. And while we haven't 100% figured it out, I guess at the staff level, we know that if we're going to do a new facility or even major projects, that comes at a cost over time, and $100,000, it's going to take a long time to build up anything to be meaningful. And I know Member Quigley mentioned, I think it was here, maybe it was at council, Silverton City Hall. That was decades of saving and planning. That doesn't come overnight. So James, do you want to add anything to that?
Just that the fund began in 2002, and yeah, it was through just internal transfers from other funds, hoping that someday would be able to fund a civic center type city hall. And the allocations have wavered over the years and come from different funds, but we were trying to establish about $100,000 a year coming from the areas that would benefit from having a new city hall. So it's mostly funded by police, Public Works admin, court, planning, and city hall, the current city hall admin. But also recognizing that this fund does pay for improvements to those other sites, those other buildings that have problems, such as the movie theater, the Moose Lodge, the teen center, those outlying buildings that we own that are not in tip-top shape, and when there's problems, we have to fund them somehow.
Okay, and that kind of gets into the second part of my question. How are the city-owned facilities funded? I mean, is there other places in the budget that is funding their maintenance and the upkeep and the higher level renovations, and if the pipe bursts in the middle of winter, fixing that?
It's all from the general fund.
Okay, so this is more just kind of allocating monies specifically for the upkeep of our facilities to make sure that we can maintain them?
Upkeep and renovation, like we're doing at the City Hall now by adding a new conference center, and we've done...
Room, not
conference room, sorry. And interior, adding walls or moving rooms and renovations that are necessary as we, add staff and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I make one more question? Is that all right?
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. About, I guess, what do you think that the having our reduction to being $25,000 a year? Do you feel that would be sufficient to do the upkeep and maintenance and then renovations for these facilities? Do you think that would be an adequate level of funding for them? don't know if you'd be answering that.
I would just kind of say it's just a short-sighted fix to a long-term problem. I mean, right now that facilities fund has over $800,000 in it, so there's some money there, but we need a long-term facilities assessment and figure out what we want to do long-term, and if that's to save, then.
And just on that, so right now it's got about 800,000. We're looking at a remodel in City Hall that would allow a better use of the space, since we knew we weren't going to be getting a City Hall anytime soon. Make it a better, more livable space. I think the estimate was about 600,000, 700,000. Oh, I don't remember. It was about 700,000, and so we didn't put it forward in the budget because we didn't want to use the entire budget on that project. But we need to be doing things. We need to be expanding. Right now, Public Works is still in a rented facility. Ultimately, it would be nice to get them somewhere more permanent. What would you like to say, Barry?
I want to refer you back to the last page that I talked about, that currently the facilities value is about, I think, $26 million, and at the moment we have about $4 million of deferred maintenance in our buildings as it stands right now. And I think that's the point you're trying to make.
That is the point I'm trying to make, yes.
Jordan?
I have a question. So last year, I believe it was the first year that we ever even talked about the facilities fund or did anything with it. But prior to that, when did we ever even consider or do anything or talk about using the facilities fund for any sort of maintenance or anything? Because it wasn't until we actually talked, the council brought it up or the budget committee brought it up that you even that the city staff even talked about oh, we could use this for maintenance, when it wasn't until we actually asked and said, hey, what is this actually for, that now it's oh, well, now we need this fund for all the maintenance of all these things. But it wasn't until we actually brought it up that now you're saying that that's what this is for.
I don't know that that's 100% true, but I think that this is my third budget. James's sort of second budget.
Okay.
And so I think some of it is just the questions were asked, and even we were like, what is it for? And last year, we were trying to figure out how to fund, how to do some cuts to the general fund. And so I think, that's why I said there needs to be a more robust discussion of what this fund is. But it is clearly original intent was for something bigger, a city hall. And if you don't put money into that, or into upgrades or remodeling, or if you're not going to ever be able to do it if you don't put the money aside to do it.
But also things like the Moose Lodge and the rented, the Star Cinema, the rents, those rents should be coming in and being used to maintain those buildings. They should be at market rent. And
Agreed.
And that's a different discussion, but yeah.
Yeah, but we shouldn't be pulling from the general fund to subsidize the maintenance on those buildings. And that's all I say.
Jonathan?
I guess some other questions. I was on the last budget committee, and from what I can recall, it seems like at that point in time when we actually did ask about this fund is when we kind of shifted our thoughts to treating it from a savings account for the future city hall to actually being something we were using today. Is that correct, essentially? Essentially.
Yes, that was
Okay.
discussed.
And so you had mentioned that to do some refurbishments to the city hall, that you would be costing about 600 to 700,000 out of the 800,000 we have saved.
That was the estimate, but we are not proposing
Okay.
to move forward with that
Okay,
because
but
we
so-
don't think that's wise.
Yes, I totally get that. My other question is that 800,000 has been what we have saved between 2002 and 2023.
I believe so, but I'm not sure if there was an infusion to start that fund or how it began. but-
So it took us 20 years to save up enough to renovate the city hall once. Is that a correct understanding, or was there more money?
There was more money. I mean, for instance, right now, we're doing that conference room remodel.
Okay.
It's a little over $100,000.
Okay.
And I think over the years, there have been some projects. It's paid for the facilities needs assessment, which got wrapped up, I think, right before Julia started. It's funded some, yeah, it did the wall, going in one of the walls that's along the theater that was leaking. We had an emergency repair we had to do 2021, early 2021.
And I think we also allocated some funds last year towards the library HVAC towards that.
Yes, yeah, some of the HVAC, some of the funds went to pay for HVAC.
But I think your point, it's not a lot of money that has been accumulated over the
Okay,
years.
because I do want to see if how we have been funding it is enough for it to fund the maintenance of our city facilities, or if, in 20 years, we're going to have a crumbling city hall. I want to make sure that we're maintaining what we have.
I'd like to call for the question. We're going to be here all night at the rate we're going.
100%.
Okay, we'll call for the question.
And I just, for myself, I just want to make sure I am remembering what the motion is. It's reducing the facilities funds by $100,000 a year, so that about approximately the $82,000 that's listed in the memo can be allocated towards streets. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah.
Steve?
Yes.
Len?
Yes.
I'm thinking.
Yes. Jonathan?
I'm thinking.
Ken?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Brian?
No.
Damien?
No.
David?
No.
Brent?
Yes.
Luke? No. Jonathan?
No.
Motion passed 6-5.
Are you guys questioning?
Let's raise our hands. Sorry. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did everybody.
If you voted yes, can you please raise your hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you voted yes, please raise your hand.
Yeah, that's 6.
2, 3, 4, 5. Don't doubt us.
We had like double happening here.
All right. Do you want to repeat the? It passed 6-5, correct?
How did we lose those two last options?
It's never going to pass. It's not.
Mr. Quigley, do you have a question?
Not a question, but just a statement, I think. I want to get this wrapped up, as I'm sure everyone else in this room does, and just an observation really quick over the last 3 days. I sat here and I listened to Luke ask the question, if our facilities and our inventory is in such bad shape, why are we adding to it? And I agree with that statement. I heard Mr. Walker say, the only way to get the streets in line is with a bond measure, and I agree with that. when I look at this budget, and I know it's just spending authority, essentially, putting the money aside for potentially having those grants and those SDCs flow through the door and enabling us to use them. But I have a real problem with having a budget that goes up 28% based on a 2,246% increase in grants and then an assumption on SDC budgets up by 89%. That's just not the reality of what we're going to realize in my estimation. None of this takes into effect what's happening at the state legislature level, where we're going to be forced as a city to basically accommodate housing because of the legislature changing it. So that's going to come to us on a natural level, and we just better be prepared for that. And so I'd like this to be more in line of a realistic expectation in our budget. And that's all I had to say.
Mr. Walker?
I agree with Mr. Quigley. It bothers me considerably that we've got 28% increase, and it's not really realistic. That's all I got to say.
Chair,
Jordan?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget as amended.
Seconded. Committee Member Patty.
Is there any discussion on Jordan's motion to approve the budget as presented?
I'm open to hear if anyone has anything else they would like to add. I just want to move it forward.
Yeah, understand. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For the items I just mentioned about being realistic in our budget, and for having some other items in here that we still haven't addressed, the $50,000 in the urban renewal plan, the $30,000 in the Sustainable City Year program, our ability not to set aside money in the hopes of that we're going to make improvements to infrastructure and the businesses will come from that standpoint. I can't support that, and so for that reason, I'm going to vote no on the motion. And with that, I'll call for the question, so there's no further discussion. We got. Oh, sorry, didn't see it.
Got it. I got it. Mayor Quigley, thank you. I was actually very shocked and surprised how those two in particular that you had just mentioned just kept getting brushed aside, and why we never got back to them, and everything got shifted to others. So I'm in full agreement with him that Sustainable City program and the urban renewal, specifically on page 30, should be cut.
Luke?
I guess for my question, I have a question for Mr. Quigley, because I'm interested in hearing what you have to say on this. I agree with you on a lot of the things that we're looking to spend money on, adding a park when we can't maintain our parks, and a lot of the speculation. What would you like to see this budget look like, or is it just more of a desire to see it less future heavy, I guess?
Thanks, Luke. Real quick, I will say I think there's some things here that, in my mind, is not an applicable discussion for the Budget Committee, and I will have that discussion at Council. But what do I like to see this budget to be more within line of reason? The things I mentioned, I mean, who's going to look at this and say, yeah, we're going to get 2,200 percent increase in grants, especially right now in the world that we live in, and where all the federal grants in the world are kind of getting canceled. We know that's the reality of what's taking place right now, and how we budget for that. I mean, I guess, again, I understand that it's placeholders in the event that we get that money, but the reality is that that's not going to come to fruition in my mind. So I just like to be more streamlined in what we're actually being reality-based on a budget, and that's where I'm standing.
Thank you.
David?
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on your point, Committee Member Quigley. I guess my question back to that is, like, why would we cut ourselves at the knees and disable our ability to get those those funds and get? I mean, I guess if the point is, then we have more aging infrastructure, more liabilities. Like, I'll hear if that's what it is. I guess I hear that.
Luke?
So I have a kind of a clarification question. The grant monies are placeholders here. If we were to remove them from the budget, we could approve the budget and then when they come through have a supplemental to set them in place, or do we have to have them in place before we pursue them?
The way we're instructed is to build a budget for all the revenue that you're anticipating or know of. So in order to make a supplemental budget for additional revenue, it should not have been known at the time that you build the budget.
Thank you.
Jordan?
I know. Okay, so we should not sit us next to each other. Okay, I have two things. So clarifying, so like with the SDC funds, if that money doesn't come in, then obviously, or if a portion of it comes in, then we just spend it accordingly, right, with the projects and put them in priority order. We kind of talked about that. So the budget looks bigger because we are kind of looking at, like, anticipating some things happening. If they don't happen, then we obviously can't spend the money, right? So it's, but you're saying that if we know about it and we're anticipating it, then we're, by practice, best practice is supposed to put it in there.
Yes.
Okay.
It also,
Maybe you're going to say what I was going to say. Go ahead.
probably not, but it also magnifies the budget twice. It magnifies it once because it's in the transfer as well. You receive the money in the SDCs as
Yeah.
revenue, and then you transfer it to the enterprise fund so it can spend it, and then you spend it there. So it's
So it makes it look that,
Yes.
make that fund look bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, can you remind me, so the urban renewal plan, you say it's a carryover from the previous fiscal year because we
haven't started the plan.
We haven't started the plan. But Quigley, you made a mention that there wasn't an appetite for us to do that. Can you, from either way, kind of expound upon that?
Sure.
And that can kind of
Sure.
make my decision on how I feel about it.
I think my recollection was there was one, if not two, I'm almost positive there was two urban renewal attempts within the city. And both of those failed because of primarily the other taxing districts' resistance to it. And I think that's going to be the same situation as we have as we approach it. And I think the other piece of it is not understood 100%, and I know that it ever will be understood on how it actually works in freezing that tax base. People think when they hear about it that it's going to be increasing their taxes or taking away from that other district. And that's really where the resistance comes from. I don't think that it's going to, number one, it's going to be a very hard lift to overcome that misnomer of how it's interpreted. And I think that we don't understand the benefit, and correct me if I'm wrong, the benefit of that urban renewal district doesn't come to us for how many years after the fact?
Well, it depends on how development occurs, so
Right.
it comes as the increment
Right, but
grows.
it's not going to be like immediate.
It's not going to be immediate, but again, it depends a little bit on how you structure it. But it's going to be as development comes in and that is added to the tax rolls, and so you can bond against some assumption. I just want to also say, it doesn't automatically go to the voters. My understanding is that when it happened in the past, it was voted on by the council, and it was referred to the voters through a referendum or a petition process, I think. So it's not necessarily a heavy lift if you have the taxing, if you have people on board that don't put it to the voters. And then what it is intended to go towards would be helping some economic development, but we also envisioned that it could potentially go towards street improvement projects.
Right. And so I guess I would say one other thing is that, again, I'm going to refer back to the impact that the state's having on local communities, and we are losing our ability to control what our destiny looks like in Stayton, and that's going to continue, especially in this session right now. And it's going to come to us fast and quick, and we won't have a say in the matter. And I guess that's part of my frustration about having these things in place when it's going to happen to us either way, whether we like it or not.
Luke?
From my understanding, I don't really have much of a stomach for the urban renewal plan. I don't like the idea. I don't see it realizing as much money as has been sold, I think.
Mr. Walker?
Call for the question.
Call for the question. Shall we end discussion and move to a vote? Yes.
I asked so maybe you guys too, we're voting on the budget adoption as amended, correct? Okay.
Steve?
Yes.
Len?
No.
Luke?
No.
Jordan?
Yes.
Jonathan?
I'm thinking.
Ken?
Yes.
Denise?
No.
Brian?
No.
Damien?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brent?
No.
Jonathan?
Okay. I'm going to vote no because I do think there's some more stuff we need to discuss.
Motion fails 6-5.
I talked enough today.
I want to hear what Ken has to say. Yeah. Can we call another member? I'd like to hear what Ken has to say. Ken hasn't said much. Okay.
You do have people whose placards are up, so.
Go ahead, Chairman. Sorry.
I don't have to make a motion, do I?
No.
So I can just ask, talk. Okay.
Go ahead, Denise.
Okay. So I think we killed the urban renewal. So I just want to make some comments about the Sustainable City Year program. So it sounds like a good program. I'm sure we can save money with students. What concerns me is how much time, we have so much on the plates of you guys right over there. And it just makes me wonder if bringing them in, how much time is that going to take away from staff, from them doing assignments that maybe don't need to be done right now? That we're finding them work to do, but it's not really something that would be on your agenda like in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, and to be clear, they would be doing things that are council goals. If they are not doing it, it will very likely not get done. So yes, it will take time, but it's addressing council goals.
And I don't want to take everyone's time.
That's more on you guys. I don't know what the council is. I know, but still. You guys have a whole conversation.
There's only one caveat for me on that, but I'm not going to. Go ahead. Call it.
Chair's got a question. I didn't hear or understand the result of our first motion to pass the budget.
So, sorry. So the motion to pass the budget as adopted failed, so the budget has not been adopted, and so now you guys are discussing, waiting for another motion, because it sounds like people still maybe want to do some motions to cut some things or discuss some things, and so that's where.
I just have one question regarding that sustainable. Has council goals been met before without the help of students from Oregon?
Of course.
Okay, so what's the big push in making that happen now?
So the issue is I am charged, council sets goals, the budget is informed by the council's goals. So we prepared a budget with the intention of meeting council's goals that they set. So I would have budgeted money for consultants, I would have budgeted money for staff, I budgeted $30,000 to accomplish 7 council goals. If that is not what you guys want, that's fine. But we will not be able to meet those goals because we did not account for being able to meet those goals.
Luke?
I would like to make a motion to remove the $50,000 for urban development from the budget.
And you are specifically referring to the urban renewal development plan.
Yeah, the thing right above the 30,000.
Second.
Where do you want to move it to?
Discussion on Mr. Cranston's motion.
It would be stuck back into general fund.
Okay.
Yes. It would be not in the budget and then
Back into the general.
Back into the general fund.
So unappropriated, essentially.
Questions? Cards up.
So is there a second? Motion and a second.
Mr. Patty, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Committee Member Patty here. I'm clarifying this. Is this $50,000 being spent by grant or something? I'm sorry, I can't even remember at this point. So this would actually be true dollars that were taken from the general fund to spend on that?
That is correct. It would be basically paying a consultant to help us with the plan.
Call for the question, Mr. Chair.
Call for the question. If we have no further discussion, let's vote on Mr. Cranston's motion to
Remove the $50,000 from the urban renewal area plan and return it to the general fund.
Steve?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Yes.
Luke? Yes. Jordan?
No.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Damien?
yes.
David?
Yes.
Brent?
Yes.
Motion passes 10-1.
That's unanimous.
Chair.
Are you going to call somebody? You get to call people. They're not going to speak until you do.
Jordan?
Well, he keeps looking at me, but he knows I talk too much, so. If I may, I think that the disconnect or the struggle that people are having with the Sustainable City Year program is that, and maybe I shouldn't speak for everyone else, I think maybe for me the hesitation and the concern is spending the money and the concern that the product or what the students that are looking at our town and our community are not going to give us something that is going to really like align with our values and what we want. And to Mayor Quigley's point about like the examples and like you said, like maybe those are exactly what they had asked for, or maybe they didn't give them specific parameters. But those examples do cause a little hesitation. Obviously they're not what, these goals are, so that it is just a little concerning because, obviously we can give them these things, but we don't want them to go off on tangents and being like, that's not what we're asking for.
So I'm going to say two things.
Yeah.
One, that was just some of the examples.
Yes.
Some other things were public relations campaigns, wayfinding, parks and open space planning, downtown revitalization, engaged journalism, policy analysis, nonprofit consulting, civic design. So there's a lot of things that they do that are not those things.
Sure.
And then I guess I would also say that we're preparing a budget and we're giving you examples of how the money would be spent. At the very least, keep the $30,000 in the budget and allow us to accomplish one goal with consultants. If you take the $30,000, we have no money to do any of the things that you've asked us to do. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough.
I want to be assertive and just talk because I don't need permission. While I struggle with the concept, I agree with Julie on leaving it there and allowing the city council to delve into and dig into this a little more and to make sure that they're comfortable with it, and I'm going to trust in their judgment to move forward on a healthy manner on that front.
Okay,
that's where my stand on that front.
Okay.
That needs to be reworded then. It can't be directed after.
The chair is not.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm filling in for a minute. Go ahead.
So I was definitely against the Sustainable City program when I was looking through things, but I'm going to trust Julia's judgment, and she wants to. I know she's trying to accomplish some goals, so you know what? I'm fine with setting aside $30,000 for it. I mean, I don't. If it can help us accomplish some goals, and it's just. I think we should do it.
Okay. Is that it? Okay, perfect. I guess my questions, I think maybe Jennifer might be able to answer this. If we were to try to get actual consultants to do the work that we are doing with the Sustainable Cities program, how much would that cost to have them do it, the exact same job that the students are going to be doing?
I don't know exactly, but it would be considerably more. It would probably be like 60,000 or something like that, just for economic, even higher. Yes.
So more than double.
Yes.
More than double is a very reasonable thing to say.
I think if you kept the 30,000, if you wanted to go with the consultant, you'd probably have to do a very small, objective.
So for consultant fees, this is getting a lot of bang for our buck.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Luke, are you going?
One of the other areas I had a concern with was the development of Mill Creek Park. I know it's all grant money, or most of it's grant money. I just look at it like we have a third of our parks that we can't maintain, and this structure is going to add I think the numbers are about 18% to our parks that we now have to figure out how to maintain. We haven't figured out how to maintain what we've got. Adding more is not, I wrote down it violates 2 of your council goals about being fiscally responsible and having maintenance plans. Instead of looking to maintain what we've got, we're looking for shiny new things to distract us. At least that's what it feels like, and that would be something I'd like to address before we move forward.
Okay, thanks, Luke. All right, let's, I'm filling in for Chair for the moment. Let's try to, we got 15 minutes left here, so let's try to conclude this if we can. I do have comments on the, I'm not even going to go into it right now. About the goals. So my ask of yesterday, specifically about that question, was regarding the housing, and in particular the effect that I just mentioned about the housing coming to us whether we like it or not. And so I have a hard time understanding what's going to, within the goal session the council put together, I don't recall ever being told it's going to cost you this much money or else we're not going to do it. So, are you back, or you want me to keep going?
I just needed to stretch.
No problem. I just want to, let's see if we can start working towards a resolution here, folks. I'll yield back to you, Mr. Chair.
So since the budget hasn't passed, we are at a point where we need to keep discussing. So I'm just going to let you members keep bringing up ideas for cuts or moving money, I guess. Mr. Walker.
The big problem I have is when I look at this and I see city's total budget for the biennium now at 95 million and the budget current revenues is 63 million. I find it hard to imagine how we get from there to there. And I don't know where we go from here. If it was up to me, I would pick a number and then tell the staff, this is what you have to work with, bring me back a budget. Because I don't know where we go from here. To me, we're so far apart that I just can't see it.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I don't know who had cards up first. Mr. Sims.
I guess I'm just trying to, so what have we passed for amendments so far? We've got 50,000 from urban renewal going back into the general fund, and then we passed how we were paying for the lighting with the cuts. That's it, right?
And then reducing the facilities transfers by half. And then
I don't think that passed, though, did it? Oh, it did
That did
pass?
pass.
Okay, so we got the facility transfer reduced. I'm just trying to figure exactly what we're sticking on right now. I mean, I know the budget's 95, but we're taking in less, but it's all about grants and transfer of monies, because they count those transfer of monies in with the budget, and that raises it up. So, I mean, we can only spend what we have. We have a bottom line. We get 63 million in, then that's all we can spend. So, I mean, you can't spend more than what we have. That's federal law. So I'm not sure where, I don't understand the, yeah. Okay. But anyway, I'm just trying to see what's stopping us from passing a budget at this point, because this is going to go on forever. It's getting a little ridiculous.
Jordan.
Okay. Since we didn't pass the budget, I did have a question because we didn't really discuss it as the budget committee. But the new position in the Public Works, we have the Public Works Director and the engineer position that hasn't been filled yet. Are we all good with that? Everybody good? Anybody have questions?
Salaries are in there, right?
Just my questions.
So your question is the engineering position good?
I'm
We
just
want-
asking if anybody, nobody said, we haven't said anything about it. We didn't discuss it. Do we want the asset manager? Do we want to continue with the engineer position?
I'm good with those positions. Public Works is short of people. I think we
Okay.
should.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to go ahead and respond because I believe I was the one who asked about that. I am pretty, I'm fine with the idea Julia lined out in her memo about increasing, the step offering and that kind of thing. I feel like her flexibility as manager, I don't want to interfere with that. I think that she can do what I'm hoping she can do there in filling that position without increased funding, and that was kind of the idea I was thinking. But with her point about it being offered at a higher step value, that kind of made sense to me. So that, at least that question coming from me was resolved.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. Julie, this is a question building off of what David said. Would we need to be doing any sort of changes to the budget to account for hiring on those two new positions at a higher step?
So I guess I don't want to peek behind the curtain so much and reveal assumptions that we make in the budget for salaries, because that potentially undermines contract negotiations and things like that. I don't know if you can.
Or would it, I mean, guess like, if we were to say we wanted to allow you to do that, would we need a subsequent transfer of some sort of dollars without causing cutting somewhere else?
I think so. I mean, I'm going to speak for James, and he can kick me or add on. We've got some vacant positions. We don't know that where we would necessarily hire all the positions at. It seems like there's always some sort of salary savings at some point. So I don't know. I mean, what do you speak into the mic? Thank you for the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. Without a dollar amount coming this way, it's hard to say, but we can usually find enough money within the fund to do small increases.
Okay.
Through vacancy savings or some other way.
Okay. Because I just wanted to make sure that that was a feasible thing for us
Yes,
to do without
unless
any-
you're saying, double it, no, I
Okay.
can't do that.
Okay.
So I'm not hearing like a dollar amount, but I think we can usually find that's what I think you're
Okay.
thinking. Probably we could make it work.
Yeah, so
Without
giving
a,
Julie
without a
the-
change to the budget, yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to reply to Jordan's question. Since we have had an offering for the engineering position, instead of, do we farm that out right now? Engineering?
We have a contract, an
Right,
on-call.
okay. So yes, I'd like to see engineering brought to my hometown, and I'm going to give Barry big kudos on describing to us that we should add this new position called an asset manager, right? Yeah, I'm all for that, definitely, especially in light of how much we all learned a couple of nights ago that we've got some, to lightly put it, deferred maintenance all over town. So yes, I would like to see those two positions brought on. And then, Luke.
Is there stomach for discussing the Mill Creek Park improvements and removing them? Just so that we're not adding to. Judging by the silence, I will say that's probably a no.
Denise?
Okay. I'm going to assume, from what I've witnessed going to meetings, that some of this stuff that's still out there, that there's going to be conversations between staff, city council, and be able to work through some of this. So at this time, I'm going to make a motion that this budget is approved with the agreed-upon amendments that have been voted on. Is that all I need to say?
Seconded, Member Patty.
Any discussion on Denise's motion to consider approving the 25-27 budget?
Hold on just a second, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, can you? It's on your agenda, the recommended.
As amended, not presented. As amended, not presented.
Here we go again. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025 to 27 budget in the amount of $95,096,219 as amended.
Seconded, Member Patty.
Now we'll have discussion, please.
Does that include the 50,000 that we pulled out? As amended? Okay.
Jonathan?
I would like to say that I do support adopting the budget because I do firmly believe in our council and in our staff that with the spending that we have given them, they will be spending the next biennium making the good choices and doing the best they can for our city. So I will leave it up to you guys going forward.
Call for the question.
Yeah, call for the question.
Call for the question.
Steve?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Luke?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
Brian?
Come back to me.
Damien?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brent?
No.
Brian?
You don't need me.
You still have to vote.
I'm going to stick to my principles now.
Okay, motion passes, what is it? 9 to 2.
So there's still some motions that need to be made this evening, so that's on your agenda, so. So do you, Damien?
Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I motion to approve levying the city's statutory permanent tax rate of $332.8 per thousand of taxable assessed value. These taxes are hereby categorized for purposes of Article, oh God, you and your Roman numerals, 11B as subject to and within the general government limitation.
Second.
Second.
Just pick one.
Yeah, did you get?
Yeah.
Who wants to claim that second? Damien.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the city statutory permanent tax rate. Do we have any discussion? No, call for the question. May we have a vote, Melanie, please?
This probably could just be a yes or no, because it's probably going to be, okay.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item number 2 passes. Moving on to the third bullet point. Consider approving levying the city's local option tax rate of 50 cents per $1,000 of taxable assessed value for recreation, which would be the parks and the pool, for the fiscal year of 2026. It's a motion to approve levying the city's local option tax rate of 50 cents per $1,000 of taxable assessed value for recreation, which is parks and pool, for the fiscal year. These taxes are hereby categorized for purposes of Article 11, Section 11B-A-S, subject to and within the general government limitations. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I second your motion.
Sorry,
Chair.
Sorry.
The easy way
Thank
with
you.
that, you could say so moved, and then.
Thank you for the second, Mr. Petty. Is there any discussion on this third item?
Call the question.
We'll have a vote. Ayes. Let's have a vote. Aye. Any noes? And the motion passes. Moving on to the fourth bullet point. Consider approving levying the city's local option tax rate of 40 cents per $1,000 of taxable assessed value for the Stayton Public Library for fiscal year 2026. Do we have a
Chair.
motion? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I motion to approve levying the city's local option tax rate of 40 cents per $1,000 of taxable assessed value for the Stayton Public Library for fiscal year 2026. These taxes are hereby categorized for purposes of Section 11B as subject to and within the general government limitation.
Thank you for that motion. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for that second. Let's have a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Bullet point number 4 has passed. The fifth one, can we have a motion, please, to consider approval of receipt of and uses of state shared revenue?
Yeah, I'd second that motion. So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we'll have, is there any discussion on this line item? No. Now let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And this item passes.
One meeting that went past. That's pretty good. Now that, not according to that one, move right ahead. That one, we're not adjourned yet.
Are we adjourned?
Thank you, members, for all that 3 nights of discussion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you for all the hard work. And I adjourn the meeting at 9 o'clock this Thursday night.
He's trying to make it right at 9. That's what he's doing. That's funny. Hey.